Hello, welcome again to this channel. In today's tutorial, I'll be taking you through the basic models in building or establishing a secure information system or providing a secure cyberspace. So please like this channel, share the content, comment, and subscribe. Thank you. So what is information security? Information security is the concept of computer security. So to expand on this, we'll say the concept of computer security has been replaced by the concept of information security. And this information security covers a broad range of issues, from protection of the data to protection of human resources. So both the data and the human resources are being protected to secure or to provide a secure information. So information security is no longer the sole responsibility of a discrete group of people in the company. Information security, or InfoSec, so it's the protection of information and its critical elements, ensuring the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, including the systems, the hardware that are used, store, and transmit that information. And information security is achieved through the application of policy, technology, training, and awareness programs. So there should be a laid down policies for an organization to follow to ensure that the security of data, the computer resources, and information is being secure. There are some technologies that the organization needs to use to ensure security of data. Samples are intrusion detection systems, firewalls, VPNs, and intrusion prevention systems. And there should be training of employees to create awareness of the threats out there and what they can do to prevent being exposed to those threats and vulnerabilities. An information security model, the CIA triangle, where the C stands for confidentiality, I for integrity, and A for availability. And then we'll be expanding this into a more comprehensive list of critical characteristics of information, where we'll be adding accounting, authorization, and authentication. So the first C in the CIA triangle, the confidentiality. So the confidentiality is the characteristics of information whereby only those with sufficient privileges may access certain information. So it is a model to ensure security or information security or cyber security, whereby only people who have been authorized to access a particular resources will be given that, and they can enjoy that privilege. So confidentiality measures used to protect confidentiality are information classification. So this is where the organization has to classify its information as critical or no other important. So the classification will determine the kind of security controls or measures, the attention that will be given to that kind of information or that kind of computer resources. So secure document storage. So the data at rest should be stored in a secure manner. So either they will be encrypted to ensure that even if there is a data breach, the content of the data will not be exposed or viewed. Application of general security policies. So there should be a general security policies where everything that they have to do within the organization need to follow. And then these laid down policies will come out with the procedures they need to follow to go by the policies. So education of information custodians and end users. The end users need to be educated as to how best they can to ensure the confidentiality of the various information and then the computer resources that they deal with. Then we'll move on to the I in the CIA triangle, the integrity, the quality or state of being whole, complete, and uncorrupted. So the integrity is about ensuring that the information system or the information, the data, is not altered or modified or fabricated. So the state of the data will be as it is and can only be modified or changed by somebody who is authorized, authenticated, authorized, and then allowed to do so. So we are saying that information security integrity is threatened by if it's exposed to corruption, damage, destruction, or other destruction of its authentic state. So whenever the information is being interacted where the authenticity is questionable, then we say the integrity is compromised. Corruption can occur when information is being compiled, stored, or transmitted. Then we'll move on to the A, availability. The characteristics of information that enables user access to information in a required format without interference or obstruction. So the information can be confidential and the integrity can be ensured, but whenever it's not available for use by the authentic or the required users, we will say that the availability has been compromised. A user in this definition may be either a person or another computer system. So either a person may need the information or the computer resources, or another computer system may need that information. And if it's not available, then availability is compromised in there. Availability does not imply that the information is accessible to any user. So the fact that we want the information system or the information to be available, it does not mean that anybody at all can access it. So the availability is only available to authorized, authenticated, and legitimate users of the system. So we look at other key concepts. Privacy. So information collected, used, and stored by an organization is to be used only for the purposes stated to the data owner at the time it was collected. Privacy as a characteristic of information does not signify freedom from conservation, and it means that information to be used will be used only in ways known to the person providing it. So whenever there is a kind of platform that collects user information or user data, what the data will be used for should be made known to the one that is providing the data or the owner of this personal information. So most of these privacy statements have been provided in the terms and conditions of privacy statements. But as to the users to read these privacy statements in terms and conditions, that is a very main and very big issue. And then we move on to identification. So the identification and authorization is a concept under confidentiality. So we want to make sure that our system is confidential so that it is only accessed by people who are legitimate and have been authenticated and authorized to have access to. So in the case of authentication, there should be an identification. So an information system possesses the characteristics of identification when it can recognize individual users. So in the case that, let's say the system, you need to provide your credentials to log into the system. So the system should be able to identify you as you claim to be and then to authenticate you. So identification and authentication are essential to establishing the level of access or authorization that an individual is granted. So whenever you are identified and authenticated, the level of access that should be granted based on your credentials will be determined, and that authorization will be granted to that individual. Then we have authentication. It occurs when a control proves that a user possesses the identity that he or she claims to be. So you provide your password, your username and password, and then it will be checked, and there should be a proof either you are whom you claim to be or you are not. And whenever there is a proof that you are, or the credentials you have provided is in the system, you will be granted access based on your various access controls that have been defined in the system. And then we have authorization. So authorization ensures that the user has been specifically and explicitly authorized by the proper authority to access, update, delete the content of an information system. User may be a person on the computer. Authorization occurs after authentication. So the system works in a way that identification comes, authentication follows, and then you'll be authorized to do whatever you are being allowed to do as a legitimate user. So in all this, the access that needs to be granted or to be given needs to be defined in the access control list. So either it is a mandatory access control, role-based access control, attribute-based access control. It needs to be defined in the access control list so that whenever you are being identified, authenticated, and authorized, the right access will be given to you based on what is being defined in the access control list. And then from the authorization, we move on to accountability. It says this when a control assures that every activity undertaken can be attributed to a named person or automatic process. So you have been identified as a particular user and you have been authenticated to use the system as that user. So when you log in, for example, you log into your Facebook with your username and your password, and you have been identified by the system with that username and password, and you have been authorized to use the system within your name. So with the identification, authentication, and then authorization, anything you do within that system will be accountable to you. Anything that happens within the system and is related to the username that you have provided will be accountable to you. So the accountability ensures non-repudiation. Non-repudiation is the act that somebody will do an act and the person will not be able to deny it. So it prevents you from denying an act that you did after identification, authentication, authorization. So these are the basics of information security or cyber security. Thank you. Please like, subscribe, and share.